What would you tell somebody to say, try these 2 or 3 things to help you with your anxiety before we take it up a notch?
Yeah, that's actually a very easy answer, and it's going to be surprising for a lot of people. And it's going to sound like I'm a doctor. I am one. I'm just not that kind of doctor. But if you would simply exercise, if you would go on a walk, and part of that is the physical exertion that comes from exercising releases a lot of natural endorphins inside your body that do amazing things for depression in particular, but also anxiety. And so being able to physically act out in whatever way that is, I got to play basketball for years. Now I'm old enough that my body is torn up enough that basketball is probably not the outlet for me anymore, but
Hey, today we get a special guest in the studio. Here in just a moment, I'm going to throw it over to me and Matthew LaGrange talking. Matthew LaGrange is a professional counselor. He opened his own counseling office called His Story Counseling. It's fantastic, and I am a proud attender of there. Matthew and I met when I asked, I need to talk to somebody. I need to have a counselor in my life because I view it as so valuable, and I encourage other people to do that as well. He came highly recommended, and I just love my time with Matthew. Today, we're going to talk about worry and anxiety and stress and all the mental health issues our world is facing today, and we're going through a series on that right now at our church, at Church 360. You can check out those messages at church360.com, and also our Monday Minute, which kind of wraps up the sermon every Monday that comes out on this podcast. So here's my conversation with counselor Matthew LaGrange. Matthew LaGrange, thank you for being in studio. So for our listeners that don't know you, tell us about yourself and why you were able to be in studio as far as you live around here.
Yeah, my name is Matthew LaGrange. I am the founder and executive director of His Story Coaching and Counseling, which is up in Grapevine. And I started actually on staff at Compass Christian Church back in 2003 and started a ministry, was put in charge of a counseling ministry that grew to the point where in 2011 we had to separate and form His Story Coaching and Counseling. And so have been doing that for a long time. I'm from Indiana originally, and as I am often told, I got here as quickly as I could. But so both of my kids were raised here, and so just 15 miles up the road is where our office is.
So you bristled a little bit at the Kansas City Chiefs helmet. Does that make you a Colts fan?
It would. In fact, I played college basketball in Indianapolis, so I'm an Indiana born and bred total Hoosier, although I got my doctorate from Purdue, so go figure kind of how that works. Yeah. But there's a couple stories there, but I don't think we have time for those today. But I actually got to work the first games that the Colts got to play in the Hoosier Dome back in the day, because that was how our team raised money to support our college team, which, that tells you what size college team I played for.
Yes. Okay. So these were the Indianapolis Colts days, I guess, obviously before Peyton Manning. So
yeah, pre-Peyton Manning. I got to see Harbaugh play when he was there, and I was fortunate. I got to meet a lot of the players over the years, including during the time that Peyton played. But I actually got to know a lot of the players more once we moved down here, because I went to church with Hunter Smith, who was the punter for the Colts at the time. Interesting fact, I'm 6'5". I'm a pretty tall guy. The only guy who has ever dunked over me and literally jumped over me was Hunter Smith, who was the punter for the Colts.
Sanders back to return the punt, and he attracts some attention. Hunter Smith will do the punting for Indianapolis.
Deion's about as fired up on one of these things as he gets.
We've got a punter. Let me tell you something, people. Punters are people too, and I want to see some punting footage.
And Deion steps up and steps out, and there he goes. All I need to do is see the punter, and I'm gone, and he's got the punter in sight. And the punter takes him down at the 2.
Yes! What a kick! He's a weapon. He's not a punter. He's a weapon.
Just leave it there.
Oh, yes!
Go ahead, Rich. Take the route.
I want this one. Give me some punting XO. Punting XO.
As you see, when Dion catches it, he has a 10-point gap there to make the first guy miss. Then he makes the second guy miss. Then he finds a seam right there. Then he sees the punter. And he said, if I can make eye contact with the punter, I know it's a touchdown. He made eye contact with the punter, and the punter ran him down.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
I didn't jump over him.
Well, he's just a great athlete.
He is an amazing athlete.
Okay, so you run a counseling collective or group or office, however you want to say it. I've met you through that. You've just been a gift to me and to so many others. And we're in a series right now on mental health. I just want to ask you about that a little bit. And then I want to get into the book that you've recently completed, even though it's still, in editing, because I think it's such a great idea. But let's start with this. Has anxiety and worry and depression and all those things always been this bad, but now we hear about it? Or did it get significantly worse over the last few years, and why is that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm going to give you the answer that I often give my kids. Yes. It has always been around. It's been around since the beginning of the Bible. We see examples of anxiety and depression both. But there has been something unique that research has shown, really back dating into the early 2010s. So 2010, 2011, where we saw a pretty dramatic increase in both anxiety and depression, primarily in teens and young adults, though obviously we're now 15 years later. And so we're seeing that growth, that spread up into adulthood as well. That was only exacerbated by COVID, the season we had there. So yes, we have seen an increase. Part of it is we're more comfortable talking about it. Mental health doesn't have the stigma that it had back when I got started. When I was working on my master's in the late 80s, early 90s, it was not as prevalent, but it was still here. But we also, we have social media, we have the advent of a lot of online gaming and cell phones that just weren't there then. And so we see a lot of social comparison, a lot of that kind of stuff that has really increased anxiety in particular.
Talk about social comparison. What do you mean by that?
Well, you go on Facebook and everybody's life looks perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I covet the lives that some of these people present. The sad truth is I know it's a lie.
Right.
I know it's what we're presenting. We only put either the very best of ourselves or the very worst of ourselves out in public. And then we also have the tendency, there's something about being on social media that we feel safe responding to things on social media in a way that is not very helpful. So we're much bolder in what we say and what you put out online. And we're seeing this all the time from people who are in politics or sports or, people who are quote unquote famous. Once you put something out there, it's out there.
Right.
And you delete it, but it's still there.
Right.
And so people compare themselves to what they see on social media, Instagram and X and Facebook, but it's not real. And so, people are like, I can't measure up to that. Well, of course you can't.
Right.
Nobody can.
So I can certainly understand Facebook and Instagram as being this, almost a FOMO kind of thing, and look at their life and look at mine. What has gaming done to our kids and even our young adults?
Yeah, the thing that's fascinating is when, and this is where I get to say for one of the first times in my life, when I was a kid.
Yes.
We would go outside and we would go out first thing in the morning and we would be in the yard or we would be in the neighborhood or we'd be on our bikes riding 20 miles away from home.
Yep.
And our mom would have no idea where we were.
Right.
And then when it was lunchtime, we would be back at the house, and she would yell out and we would all come inside, and we would sit down, we would have a meal, and then we'd immediately go back out
Right.
and be playing. And we would play with our friends who were local, and sometimes we would travel to where they were. But
Right.
it was just, we were out and about and playing, and it would be until dusk or dark. It depends on if we were playing Ghosts in the Graveyard or whatever.
Right.
But we were just playing sports and all kinds of active events where we were engaged socially. Now what you see is a lot of kids who are engaged socially through their gaming. And so they've got their headsets on, they are sitting in front of either a computer or a gaming device. And so they're talking to people, often people that they don't really know.
Right.
You know, they come to know them through the games, but they don't share their life. They share a game. They share a fantasy, which, research demonstrates just is not the same.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So let's, have you read the book, The Anxious Generation?
Yes, I have.
Okay. That's a tough read because it is long and it's a lot of studies but everybody's talking about it.
Yes.
And there's great stuff that comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just sum that up for our listeners. What were some of the high points which are actually low points that he pulls out of there as to what our kids are going through right now?
Yeah, it's really talking a lot about what we just were referring to with our kids, that they're not playing in the same way that they did 20, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. And it's not that we have to go back to how things used to be, but we've got to recognize the impact of technology and cell phones on the youth of today.
Mm-hmm.
There has been a spike in anxiety, depression, and various other mental illness issues that are directly connected by research to the use of technology and the diminishment of physical play.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of what the book talks about is through all the research that's been done. It's just demonstrating that's what the cause is.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the way research is done, a lot of times what you'll see in newspapers and hear about on radio are studies that are correlational in nature. So this factor over here, it relates to this factor over here, but you can't infer causation from that. You can't say A causes B. The kind of research that they're referring to in this book is actually really high-level stuff where it does look at causation, and there is a direct causal link between social media, cell phone technology, and an increase in mental illness.
Right. So now they don't have to read the book, so they can read your book, which isn't out yet. We'll get to that in a minute. For our people out there that are trying to manage their anxiety, it's a little different than it was 20 years ago. We know about things like breathing and mindfulness, meditation, and certainly some of the like box breathing and some of the tools that we've discovered. Just kind of like an over-the-counter prescription
and it's going to be surprising for a lot of people. And it's going to sound like I'm a doctor. I am one. I'm just not that kind of doctor. But if you would simply exercise, if you would go on a walk, and part of that is the physical exertion that comes from exercising releases a lot of natural endorphins inside your body that do amazing things for depression in particular, but also anxiety. And so being able to physically act out in whatever way that is, I got to play basketball for years. Now I'm old enough that my body is torn up enough that basketball is probably not the outlet for me anymore. But my wife and I walk 3.5 miles every morning. So we do that, and then we add activity on top of that. So it might be going to the gym. We love to go on hikes. We love to go off the beaten path. And so getting off of concrete into nature experiencing nature and just looking at what God has created, the amazement of wildlife and all that you can see. We see bobcats and wolves and obviously a lot of dogs and a lot of birds, but we see all of those on our walks.
Right.
And then you can see the beauty of nature and trees and the wildflowers, and just getting to appreciate that does amazing things for addressing depression and anxiety both. Another thing that you can do, and this, if you look at me, this is kind of surprising too. If you eat well, that does amazing things for mental health. I don't eat all that well. But I know that I should, so I'm going to should on myself here on your show.
Okay. All right. How do I know the difference between I'm having a bad couple of days versus I'm in depression? There's a difference between being depressed and like in full-blown depression. Talk us through kind of the clinical side of that,
right,
and how to ascertain that.
Yeah, there's a distinction between clinical depression, which is what you're talking about, and the sadness that people experience just normally in life.
Okay.
And basically what you can look at it is kind of a continuum where it's a combination of the severity of the symptoms and the length of the symptoms. So if you have depressive symptoms that last over a period of time, and I'm going to say, 2 weeks, if you are persistently sad, persistently not sleeping, persistently struggling for over 2 weeks, you may want to consider going and talking to somebody. There are lots of things you can do. WebMD is a great place to go and scare yourself to death. But there are lots of great resources online that allow you to just, check yourself. So there are tests that you can take online where you can look at your symptoms and go, okay, this rises to a more serious level. But if it lasts a long time and it's impacting your life, in order to get a diagnosis, it has to impact your functioning in some area. It might be socially, it might be relationally, it might be career-wise, educationally. If it's having an ongoing impact in any of those areas, it probably rises to the level of where you need to go get some help.
Okay. How do you encourage people to find the right counselor? Obviously, you are one, but sometimes with this, it's a little bit like dating.
Well, there's some debate about whether I are the right one.
Well, we're going to use the term loosely.
Okay.
But I mean, you want to be matched up with the right kind of person. So, if I'm talking to somebody in the church and I tell them to go see a professional counselor, how do I guide them in that?
Yeah.
What's to look out for, I should say?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that I look at. And, I run a counseling center that is unlike a lot of others in that it is a faith-based organization. And so our foundation is one of faith. It's built on Genesis 2:18, where God said for the very first time, something wasn't good. And the thing he says wasn't good for man to be alone. And it's my belief, it's my conviction that what I do as a pastor, as a counselor, as a coach, as a husband, as a father, is I get to live out God's answer to the crisis of aloneness. And so going to a counselor who has that mindset is a really good thing. Now, I'm also going to say that I have a bias against Christian counseling. Okay. And I'm not saying it's bad. There's a lot of great counselors. There are a lot of great Christian counselors. There are a lot of great secular counselors. I would much rather you go see a great counselor than it simply be a Christian counselor. Best of all worlds, have a great Christian counselor.
Right.
Okay. But the way you find that is you talk to the people that you know who have been.
Okay.
And if you ask people, you want somebody who's not going to tell you what to do. They're going to help you in the self-discovery process, live out and grow in the areas that God wants you to grow, rather than if they have an agenda about who you're supposed to be or what your life is supposed to be like.
Right.
And so I don't ever refer anybody to somebody that I have not personally met.
Okay.
So I do that with psychiatry. I do that with counselors. We have 24, 25. We have a new practicum coming in. So I think it's 25 counselors and students on staff at our clinic. And I get to know them over time. And so I know who to give people to, and I trust them. As a training site, we have trained a number of people who are throughout the Metroplex. And I have great confidence in the people that we have trained and how to take faith and practice and pull those together in an ethical way. But the thing that I trust are the people that I trust.
Right.
And so when I ask somebody, like if I needed to go see a heart specialist, I'm not going to open up. I'm almost going old school, the yellow pages. I'm not gonna get on the internet and do a search and go, oh, here, I trust all of these blind ratings on the internet. I'm going to go talk to people who have been.
Right.
And what was your experience like? And so I think there's a lot of value in going to people that you trust and getting their opinions.
And your aversion to Christian counselors isn't so much about that they're Christian. It's we don't know if they're good.
Right.
And they might just be using that label of they got a Bible verse on their card or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like driving down the road and seeing somebody who's got a little fish or a little Jesus sticker on the back of their car, and you see them cutting people off. They use it as a marketing ploy sometimes. And so, again, this is not uniform across the board. I want to know that they're really good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And you know when you go in and you sit down with somebody if they know what they're talking about or if they've got an agenda. You can sense that pretty quickly. But I want to go somewhere where I'm going to get the help really that I need. And people who have been there, done that are the ones who you can ask about that.
Okay, let me ask you this. We got a lot of parents out there listening, and their kids have reached that stage where they begin to shut down. It might be because of the phone. It might be because of something happening at school. And they just can't get quite past that barrier of what's really going on. Tell me what's happening. Why are you feeling this way? How would you help a parent try to determine, is my kid depressed? Are they being bullied? Is there something going on I don't know about? What's the mental state of my child? What would you say to that?
It's going to vary, and I'm probably going to know pretty quickly after talking to a parent about specifically what strategy to use. As parents, and I just became an empty nester. You know, my 25-year-old daughter, I walked her down the aisle just a few months ago. So I had my kids in my house for a long time. And so it's a blessing that they're out and adults and doing all that stuff. But I got to walk with them, and as a parent, I was really concerned about what they were experiencing and what kinds of things that they were into or not into, and so I know the concern that we as parents or many parents have about what's going on with their kids. But I also know the pressure that they feel when we push, when we pry, and you know, kids in their teens are getting to a point where they're starting a process that we call separation and individuation, where they're trying to become their own person. And so a lot of times the last person in the world they want to talk to is their parent. And when we push, what we do is we shrink them down. And so they're going to do one of two things. Primarily, they're going to go on the offensive and they're going to attack you and tell you to shut up and leave them alone, or they're going to shut down and not tell you anything. What I want to encourage parents to do is focus not on the issues that they're experiencing, but to focus on the relationship that they're having with their kids. And if I can create a relationship that is healthy, where I can have authenticity and I can have genuine concern and care that I'm displaying in that, without being so concerned about or focused on the details of it, they're going to be more likely to talk to me about those things. It's the old adage, you know, they don't care what we know. And we're really, I can go into lecture mode really fast with my kids. But I also watch their eyes glaze up and I watch them roll in the back of their head, and they're not listening to anything they say. And man, I've got wisdom
Yeah.
I am pouring
People
wisdom.
pay you for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if they would only understand that,
Right.
this free gift that I'm giving
Mm-hmm.
them, but they would shut down because I wasn't showing that I cared. I was telling them what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I take the time to build the relationship, they're much more likely to ask me my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And when they ask me, then I'm free
Mm-hmm.
to share that. But I also want to empower, I want to encourage, I want to speak truth and life into them.
Right.
And if all I'm doing is coming down on them for the things that I see, or I'm pushing and probing and prying, trying to be a good parent, I get all that. But when we do that, we have a tendency to shut our kids down.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, let's talk about the book. It's an interesting comment, play on words, but really profound. Talk me through it.
Okay, so 10 years ago, it's almost 11 now, I had a couple come into my office, and it's a couple that I had worked with for a long time, a couple years. They had gone through an affair, and they had really done some really good work around it, and we're in a pretty good place. But I got a call early one Thursday morning, and she was angry. And I mean, not just a little angry, very angry. And she told me that she had filed for divorce that morning. And I thought he must have had another affair. What's going on? And but that incident, she wanted to come in and for the three of us to meet together. But that incident showed me that it wasn't anything new that he had done. It was something that was still there from when the affair had been going on, where she believed, her lens told her that he didn't understand her, that he didn't agree with her, and that and he was doing something that was continuing to hurt her. But as we talked through it, what I discovered that it wasn't an issue of understanding. It wasn't an issue of whether or not he agreed with her. What was really important for her was whether or not he was honoring her, whether he was valuing her, whether he was holding her as being important. And it was so profound because as we talked, what came to light was he had been honoring her the whole time. And she never knew it because she was angry because of what he was saying. It was all about a friend that he had gotten together with. And the woman he was having the affair with showed up, and I knew it was all about he didn't want her, she didn't want him hanging out with this friend anymore. Didn't want him to be friends with the guy. And I could see something in him where he was like, "You're missing the point." He actually wanted me to not have the affair. He was trying to convince me out of it. You should want me to have friends like that who are going to stand up and say that.
Right.
But he was honoring her by listening to what she said, and he had stopped the relationship with this friend, but she had no idea he had stopped it.
Oh, interesting.
And she said something really profound. We had gotten to a place in our talk that day where I said, so what's more important? Is it more important that he understands you, that he agrees with you, or that he honors you? And she was just stunned. And she was like, of course that he's honoring me. I had no idea. For 6 months, I've been so mad at him, and he's been honoring me this whole time, and I never knew it. And it had everything to do with the lens she was using. And so that interaction led me on a journey to discover what does God think about these things? Does God care if we understand? And I know a lot of you are saying, yes, he does. He cares. It's not that he doesn't care, but that's not as important to him.
Right.
Does God care if we agree with him? I would argue that he doesn't. I would argue that the thing that's important to God is that we honor him, whether we understand or agree, because there are a lot of things that God does and God asks of us or God requires of us in his word that's really hard for me to understand and I don't agree with. But at the end of the day, do I trust him? And so the book has been a 10-year journey of looking at, is it important? Are we to respect people, which is something they have to earn? Or are we to honor people like God does? Respect is really an interesting thing. It means the same thing as honor. It's that I value you, that I hold you as being important, but we do it because you've earned it. And so, until what, a year ago or so, I knew your name, but I didn't really know who you were. And so when we connected, there was part of me that was like, I'm Dr. LaGrange, so you need to respect me. That's kind of our bias, is we have that sense that I deserve it.
Yep.
But when I look at you, it's like, what have you done to earn it? And so because you haven't earned it, if you don't respect me in our interaction, then I'm off the hook. I don't have to respect you in return. But isn't it a good thing that God doesn't seem to care about that? Because we can't earn God's respect. But does God value us? Does he hold us as being important? And the answer to that is unequivocally yes. And so what I did in the book is I looked at all the stories through the lens of honor and said, and showed, I think, this is my argument, I think I demonstrated that God doesn't care that we understand. God doesn't care that we agree. He cares that we honor. So I look at stories like, Abraham and Isaac, because they didn't understand what God was asking them to do when they took him up on the mountain to sacrifice Isaac.
Right.
Isaac didn't understand or agree that that was probably a good idea, I would think, and yet they honored him. You look at Mary and Martha in the New Testament. They were arguing about respect and about honor, and God said the thing that was important was honor. And so the book really is about how do we pick up intentionally? How do we choose God's lens and look at people through a lens of honor rather than respect? There are a lot of people in the world who do things that I don't understand, agree with, think are a good idea, evil, and yet we're still supposed to honor them. If you look at Matthew 22, verses 37 through 40, it says something really interesting, because Jesus was asked the question, what is the greatest commandment? And the distinctive between respect and honor is respect is earned, honor is freely given because of love, right? And so if you look at Matthew 22, it says to love the Lord your God. I'm going to paraphrase. To value the Lord your God, to hold important the Lord your God, to honor the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. But the second is like it. Love, value, hold important, honor others. And I'm like, okay, the whole God thing, I get. He deserves it. But God doesn't want it because he deserves it. He wants it because we love him. My others is hard because it's like, wait a minute, I've met some of those others. And they're not good people. Or they're doing things that are clearly against what's in your word, God. So I don't have to honor them, right?
Right.
But the truth that I found as I studied and as I researched the book was that we are to honor those that we don't understand. We are to honor those we don't agree with. It doesn't look like just doing what they want, but we have to intentionally choose that, because if we don't honor them, we're not honoring the one that made them. And that's really convicting for me.
Right.
And I was like, I don't like it. But because I've come to that understanding, because I've come to that conviction, I need to do my life differently. And so how can I choose to pick up a lens and look at others that way? And then the last part of the verse is really intriguing too, because it says, love others as yourself. And I'm like, I also know that in the book, it says, don't think of yourself more highly than you ought. Put others before yourself. And so I can't, how can I honor myself? If I honor myself, if I value myself, then aren't I violating other parts of Scripture? But the same thing that's true for others is also true for you. That same God that made others made you. And so it kind of takes me to the line when you get on an airplane and the flight attendant comes on and says, all of their safety spiel.
Mm-hmm.
So when that mask falls down from above, when things have really gone badly, a mask is going to fall, but you're supposed to put it on yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, you can't help anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't honor yourself, you're not honoring the one that made you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not able to honor others because you're putting yourself in a position where you're so clamped down. And all of these things have been really instrumental in the work that I do as a counselor, because I now look at everything through an honor lens.
Mm-hmm.
And part of why I think the world is as broken as it is, you talk about social comparison,
Mm-hmm.
that's a respect game.
Right.
You look at professional sports or college sports, which are professional now, I guess, in a way, or you look at politics, or you look at entertainment. And what we have done is we have created a respect lens that we then get really angry and upset and frustrated because we don't understand, we don't agree. And so the world just says, then don't respect them.
Mm.
But we then lose we lose the ability to have a relationship that's healthy
Mm-hmm.
with other people. And we lose the right to share the gospel because
Mm-hmm.
we say, well, you're whatever. Okay. You're cheating on your spouse. You're lying. You're gay. You're whatever. And it's like, well, because you're that,
Yep.
I can't have anything to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
We've completely lost the ability
Mm-hmm.
to have a relationship where we've earned the right to share the gospel.
Right.
And what they need is to experience the love of God
Mm-hmm.
in a way that draws them to him. And let's let God do the convicting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not our job to convict people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I now go through and I look at people's struggles in light of honor. Because I think most of the time they end up struggling because they're not honoring themselves. They're putting themselves down so that they can take care of their kids or so that they
Right.
can take care of somebody else, but at their own expense.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're doing it all for them and
Mhm.
not caring about anybody else. And so that just creates a really sad dynamic that leads to a lot of people coming to my office.
Right.
And I wish I could work myself out of a job.
Right.
But what I have seen over the last 10 to 15 years is seems like there's always going to be a need
Mm-hmm.
for the kind of work that we do because we're in a broken, fallen world
Mhm.
that is all consumed with respect and not honor.
That is awesome. So when can we expect that book to be out?
Well, we're in the final stages.
Okay.
And so all I have left, the content is all in. I'm still working on the cover. I have an artistic daughter who wants it to be perfect. And so within the next couple of weeks, it should be available.
That's great.
So, and the title of it is Rediscovering Honor, Quiet Strength of Reflecting God's Heart.
And that will be available where?
It will be available on Amazon, on both. It will be both electronically as ebooks and available in softback from most media outlets online in the next couple of weeks.
That's awesome. So by the time this airs, which will be not long from the moment we record this, you should begin looking for it. Matthew, where can people find you if they're interested in reaching out to you in your counseling practice?
Yeah, our website is his-story, STORY.org. And so when you go there, you'll be able to find all the information about our clinicians, about the different kinds of work that we do, from coaching to counseling to assessment work. And would love to answer any questions that anybody has. Just go to the website, put in a request, and we'll get back with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're very welcome. Honored to be here.
Thanks for making the long drive.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Well, I hope you got as much out of that as I did. I felt like I needed to pay him for it because he is always such a great voice of reason in my life. I think you're going to want to share it with somebody. So make sure you click share, send that over to a few people via text or email. Let them know about the podcast. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you get every brand new episode that comes out. Speaking of which, we got a great one coming for you next week. We will see you then. As always, keep it simple.